Hey everybody, Tim Herron here. Today I want to talk about movement. Movement into and out of position with a firearm, movement up range and down range, left and right. When I talk about movement, the number one thing to remember always is, the most important thing is always making sure we keep the muzzle pointed downrange at the backstop when we're at the range, and as well as keeping our finger and trigger discipline, and keeping our finger off the trigger until we are ready and pointed at the targets ready to shoot. When we talk about moving left to right, obviously I'm left-handed, so it's going to be just basically a mirror image of what you guys do if you're right-handed or whatnot. When we move, say from right to left, as I engage targets and I'm done moving, depending on the amount of distance I'm going to go, if it's 2 or 3 steps, I'm going to keep both hands firmly on the firearm and keep my grip established on the gun. I may have to pull the gun in to allow myself to get to the next position so that I'm ready and have the gun back out ready to fire the very second my body is settled into the next position, I'm ready to shoot again. If we were traveling over a longer distance, though, it's not just 3 or 4 steps or, on the basis of 2 or 3 yards. If we were moving, say, 7 to 10 yards or so, it may be way more beneficial to take our support hand completely off the gun, and that way we can really focus on getting our body moved, or pumping our arms to be able to move to the next position and have the gun then up, mounted, ready to shoot again the second we get into that position. If we do that, one of the things to remember is about 2 or 3 steps outside of where we're going to actually stop ourselves in position, set ourselves up in position to shoot. We want to make sure that the second we get into that position, we've already got our hands grasped back around the gun, we've established our grip, and we're actually pressing the gun back out onto target the second before we actually get to that position. So just as this box illustrates, as I'm going to come into these 4, the 2 pieces of steel and the 2 paper targets here, I would be moving. I'm going to kind of do this in slow motion, but as I get to about right here, my support hand is actually going to come back up underneath and regain grip of the gun again. I'm going to reestablish that grip so that as I get to a foot or so into the box, I've already got the gun out, and as I plant, I'm ready to start shooting again. That way there's no wasted efficiency or no wasted motion when you're moving. If you're moving left to right, for me anyway, if I'm left to right, it's the same thing. You're just going to pull the gun in, move over to the next position, and have the gun back out ready to fire. If I have to move a longer distance, again, I'm going to break grip with my support hand, and I'm going to keep the gun pointed downrange, finger off the trigger, and obviously keeping the gun pointed that way, it's not in my way, and I can move pretty efficiently left to right. Now, moving from right to left, for me, it's the same thing. I'm going to break grip, but I'm going to hold the gun up high to where I can see and spot where my feet need to go to the next position, and spot basically what we call match spots or stage spots. And those are basically things that you do when you're walking a stage ahead of time to be able to determine, this is the position exactly I want to be able to see these 4 targets, and so on and so forth. So when I do that, though, if I'm moving right to left, for me, again, it's all about getting the gun high so it's out of my line of sight. I can see everything in my peripheral vision, but it's out of my line of sight so that I can really focus on where my feet are going to be. The second, again, we get 2 or 3 steps away from position, I'm going to go ahead and remount my support hand to the gun. So that way, as I get into position, the gun is already extended, and I'm ready to start picking up targets again. One of the other things about movement is not everything, of course, is just a left to right or a right to left transition or a movement that way. A lot of times we need to go downrange, when of course going downrange is pretty easy at just basically being able to keep your hands on the gun, and if we can move downrange, we just walk towards the targets. If we need to move faster and further downrange, so if we picked up, say, an array of targets here, but we needed to run, say, down the length of a wall to get to another position to see something else, then it's just a matter, again, pulling our hands off the gun and getting ourselves running as fast as possible. You know, there's no real super special technique about movement other than if you're not shooting, your butt needs to get in gear and get to the next position so you can start shooting again. When we're talking about moving uprange, though, that's where things get just a little complicated. There's two ways of going about this. Movement uprange, when we're shooting a target that's downrange, we obviously still have to keep the firearm pointed downrange. So there's two schools of thought, or two ways to do this. One is to break grip with the gun and keeping the gun behind you and focusing your attention onto your next position you got to go and holding the gun directly behind you. The problem with that is we can't necessarily see, if we're looking uprange, we can't necessarily see exactly what's going on with the firearm behind us. So a lot of times there's room for hang-ups where we might be able to unfortunately hang up the front sight on something, drag it up along the wall or against a prop or something like that that might affect either the gun, the grip of our gun, the grip on our gun, or snagging the gun on something that could induce a malfunction or something like that. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to move that direction. So if I knew I had to go, say I'm downrange and I have to move uprange, but I have to move uprange and to the right, I'm gonna have to go that way and keep the gun pointed out this way so that when I get to the next position, the gun, I never cross myself or have to twist my body a weird direction to get the gun pointed back on target where it needs to be. Now, if at all possible, if I just basically have to move from one box to the next, I will typically turn what I call turning into the gun, which is basically you're going to shoot, and as soon as you're finished firing, I'm going to take my support hand off the gun. I'm going to keep the gun nice and high and pull the gun up over my shoulder. The thing is I can see exactly where I'm going, but in my peripheral vision, I can see and have full control of what the firearm's doing and know that obviously it's right here near me. I know I'm not a threat to being able to snag it or induce a malfunction on anything. I don't have to worry about bumping it on anything. A lot of guys are kind of concerned about they might sweep themselves. They might drop the muzzle down and actually sweep themselves on their shoulder or something. But pretty certain when you're holding the gun up like this over your shoulder, like I said, there's no way to sweep yourself. I guess there is anytime you're moving with the gun, but there's no threat of anything else being able to be in the way of the gun versus moving this direction where you can't really see what's going on because the gun's basically hanging out behind you. With that, when I'm moving uprange, a lot of times you can keep two hands on the gun, and as you move into position, then it's just a matter of turning back out of the gun and pressing the gun back out on target, and you're ready to shoot again. Also, having that gun close to you like that, moving uprange, allows you to be able to manipulate the gun. I mean, I can still do pretty speedy reloads and still have the gun pointed down range as I'm moving uprange to my next position to get ready to fire. One of the things we're going to talk about too is footwork. Making sure that, again, as we're coming into position, we want to make sure that I've got the gun mounted, I'm ready to go again. So the second I get into position and my feet stop, the gun is extended, I'm ready to start shooting. If we were moving from, say, one side of a barricade to another, though, kind of a neat trick that I learned was to use like stage markers, or again, stage spots. And stage markers for me are kind of a cool thing. When you're looking at a target that you can line up, let's say I've got this barricade here, and as I can just see, as I come around the wall, I can't see anything, and then as I point the gun out, I want to have the gun basically press at the wall so that the second that the target breaks around the wall, I'm ready to start shooting those targets the very second I see them. And I'm just going to shoot them as I break around the corner of the wall. So when you're looking at a stage or you're walking a stage and you're trying to get in your mind, okay, that target is about, say, chest height. One of the cool things you can do, especially in dry fire, to help your eyes to look at the wall so that then as you get the gun pointed at the edge of the wall, the corner of the wall, so that when you break the wall, you can see the targets. I like to use basically a Sharpie, and I'll put a mark on that side of the barricade. So this becomes now my aiming point before I get into that position. So as I come into the position, I'm already pointing the gun basically at the mark I just made, so that as I break around the wall, there it is, there's my other target, there's my next one, and there's my next one. This allowed me to have the gun up and ready to point before I could actually even see a target behind the wall, but it told me exactly how high I needed to hold or exactly what position I needed to hold the gun in, so that as I broke around the corner, I could start shooting targets as fast as possible. I hope that this video has not been too long-winded. I hope it kind of answers everybody's questions in regards to movement, making sure, again, that you've got the gun up, ready to go before your feet actually stop moving. So, and the reason we do that is because if you stop and then press the gun out, that's not very efficient. Also, if we have the gun completely extended out and then as we stop, the problem is the gun's still bouncing around. So when we're moving, like I said, about 2 to 3 steps out, we want to really get our bodies low and really tug on the brakes to slow ourselves down and smooth in and fast out. That's the key to efficient movement. Anyhow, I hope all this works. Let me know, hit me up either on my YouTube channel or on Facebook even, with any questions or anything that you might want me to answer further and more in depth. And look forward to doing more videos soon. I'll talk to you later. Thanks.